I responded to an argument about Irish nationality versus Irish ethnicity by saying that the English language doesn't make this conversation any easier because it uses the same word for both. And I had a commenter say that I suspect the reason is because for most old world countries, they were coupled. I don't know if I'd say old world countries, but definitely for most of Europe and at least historically in much of the old world. For example, for someone from Spain, it's very hard to separate the identity and the idea of Spanish ethnicity from Spanish nationality because the country was defined by the ethnicity, Spanish people speaking the Spanish language in the Spanish lands. There was a recent video by Chris the Cis, an American woman living in Germany, who said that she knows people who were born and raised in Germany. The only passport they have is German, but other people still don't consider them German, or they don't even consider themselves German because they're not part of that ethnic group, even though that is their nationality. But the countries over here weren't defined by their local ethnic groups, they were defined by colonial powers. And by the time of independence in these countries, the colonial people either largely mixed with or almost completely replaced the indigenous people. So from the very start, a local ethnic identity, an American ethnic identity, or Mexican or Brazilian identity was not tied to American or Mexican or Brazilian nationality. But because we speak the colonial language, those words are still used. And it was like that for pre-Columbian populations too. The Mayans spoke Maya, they were ethnically Maya, and they lived in the Maya Empire. A lot of them didn't necessarily have the same concept of a nation state as they did in the old world, but in a manner of speaking, they still had their nations that were defined by the people in them. And a lot of their languages probably also had the same word for their nationality and their ethnic group. But if we were to start new languages from these areas that represented the modern makeup of these people, then perhaps those different concepts would have different words. After all, in Africa, they still mostly have the indigenous population there, even though the modern countries were not formed by those groups. So they might say, I'm Hausa, I'm Igbo, I'm Yoruba. And while the ethnicity isn't called Nigerian, you could still say those are native Nigerian ethnic groups. They don't have someone from some far off land telling them that they can't identify with a certain ethnic group because that ethnic group is local. So really what we are kind of doing over here is using different words for our ethnicity and our nationality. It just so happens that for most of us, our ethnicity ties back to a different nationality.